welcome back to your daily update of Hcmc. Today we have a lot to cover, like a real lot to cover. If we have a quick look at the amount of tabs I have open, you can see we have a plethora of information coming up in this video, so you really are going to enjoy it. We have everything to talk about, from news all the way up to short squeeze potential for the company, and all of my thoughts on that kind of stuff is coming up in this very video. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we do talk about Hcmc every single day. And on Mondays we actually look at Hcmc about 2 or 3 times. We look at it before the market opens, whilst the market is opening up, to see what things do, and then again in the evening. So if you like Hcmc, this channel is a place for you, as we cover it all the time. But yes, now that I've mentioned that, we're going to jump into this one. First looking at how Hcmc has been moving, then moving on to the news. So Hcmc, well, it's been moving in a very interesting way in the past few weeks and months. We have seen continuous sell-off after the share price rocketed to these highs up here. I think that people have been anticipating Hcmc as being quite dead. I think that is okay. This is something which I discuss in many of my videos. I think Hcmc does have that potential long term, but short term, who even knows what's going to happen with Hcmc anymore. But what we are seeing right now is we're seeing something very interesting about Hcmc and the potential of the stock being shorted. So this is going to be some really interesting news, and I think if nothing else, this has brought a lot of hype to Hcmc stock. So, why are people talking about Hcmc being shorted? If we go over to Fintel, we find some very interesting information. If you look on Fintel down here, we can see the short volume ratio for Hcmc stock being about 124%. That is insane. That's really mad. Now, I think this is understandable from the shorts perspective. Let's look at this from the two sides and what people may be thinking. So I think the shorts, the people who are short on this, be it institutions or individuals, I think for them it may make sense. I think it is kind of imperative sometimes to put your money where your mouth is when it comes to these stocks. People talk about Hcmc potentially crashing all the time. I think if people do believe that is the case and they want to short the stock, that is completely up to them. But that's not the point. I think people who are shorting this stock see the stock as continuing to fall for a sustained period of time. As I have said in my previous videos, I think this could be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if the stock was to drop a bit lower, but I think even then, there is going to be a point where the shorts actually lose. And the reason why I think that is because Hcmc isn't really like a lot of the other stocks. I mean, some people who go for penny stocks, they do this quite a lot. They buy the stock at they short the stock from the high, and of course all the way down to the lows until traction runs out. But again, with Hcmc, we have a real catalyst on the table, so it does make sense that the shorts are doing that. But I think the people who really want to hold Hcmc long term are willing to hold that for 2 to 3 years to see what happens with the stock. And I think this news about a short report of about 124% is really going to get a lot of people wanting to buy Hcmc even more. Now, what we have seen about short squeezes in the past is that there is potential for them to happen. We've seen unprecedented short squeezes on many stocks this year. We've seen AMC and GME, and again, I don't think this one's going to rocket up to about $400. Obviously, that would be ridiculous, but it definitely does have the potential to get squeezed in the future. Now again, if we do want to see this one be squeezed, we will have to have volume step up significantly, and we'll have to have a more up-to-date report on what is going on with this stock. Because something which I read in the forums just the other day is who knows if these shorts have actually sold their position at the moment. And it is absolutely hard to say. I think Monday is going to be a very key day to see what does happen with Hcmc. So I can't wait until Monday to see what does happen, because what we saw in the later part of the week is volume was actually stepping up. And I did say this in last night's episode. I said, whilst I believe that the stock could drop lower, what we are seeing in the past 2 or 3 days is that the stock price has been pretty stable. And again, volume on Wednesday was actually 196 million, not too big. Again, this was a pretty red day, so people still holding. If we look over to the Thursday, the day after, volume of 4.12 billion, and even on the Friday, volume of about 3.34 billion. So volume in the billions on these 2 days towards the end of the market, which is fantastic. I think Monday will be a very hyped up day for the stock, so I can see volume stepping up insanely, and if this is possible, we could see a squeeze, who knows. And again, squeeze, some people saying it's good, some people saying it's bad. I think it could be a good thing if it was to happen. I mean, it would be an interesting thing for sure, and it definitely could make Hcmc a decent trade at the moment. I think going forwards there is a lot of potential on the table, both long and short term, so I would consider HCMC to be a decent buy at the moment. Again, I definitely still can anticipate it going lower, but at the moment, who knows? It could either go to the floor a little bit. I think if it goes to the floor, it's not going to stay there. I think if it does go to the floor, we will be picking ourselves back up once this lawsuit does hopefully go in their favour. Or, of course, we could see this one level out now and continue to go back up. So to people who say to people who kind of like say negative things when I say that I can see this one going lower, I'm not hating on HCMC. I talk about this all the time. I really do like HCMC. I own 846,000 shares, guys. That is quite a lot for me, at least. And I think, I am really pretty heavily invested in HCMC, and I do like the company. But the fact of the matter is that we could see this one go a bit lower, and we do need to be aware of a worst case scenario just in case it comes to it. But there we go. That is the information about the short interest for HCMC. So far is looking pretty good. Now, on top of that, we have a bit of a revelation in the lawsuit, or at least some information which you may want to know kind of from the lawsuit. This is coming from Philip Morris International, and this is them kind of quote-unquote taking shots at HCMC. This is true. If we already know about the HCMC patent against Philip Morris, it's basically talking about whether the product does burn or not. Now, Philip Morris International on their Twitter, down here, reading, burning starts at roughly 400 C. But nicotine is released long before temperatures rise, at roughly 247 C. That's why hashtag smoke-free products avoid combustion, fire, ash or smoke. And again, this end part of the article, or at least the tweet, is the most important because they are still saying that their product doesn't do what HCMC does say it does. Now again, at the moment we don't know if this is the case, so despite this I still do believe that HCMC does still have a lot in their favour, and I still can see this lawsuit going in HCMC's way. So again, I wouldn't consider this too concerning, but there we go. I thought I might share this one with you as it is sort of news. Philip Morris International again taking shots at HCMC about their quote-unquote smoke-free products, and again we will see throughout the lawsuit whether this is the case. Now another thing which I do want to talk about is this little piece from StockTwits here. This is talking about the potential of HCMC if they are to win the lawsuit and do a buyback, because people always ask the question if HCMC were to win, what would happen in regards to the lawsuit, and of course what would happen in regards to the share structure. Would we see a buyback or a reverse split? I think this is a good question. I think we could see either or both. This person here is saying that basically if HCMC were to do a buyback of its share structure, it would cost them about 80 million, I would assume that is, and I actually worked out this to be incorrect. Now if we do have a quick look, if they were to buy back, for example, and again it's just for example, but if they were to buy back roughly all of their shares, that would only cost them 240 million. And I say only, it is a large amount of money. I'm not saying it's a small amount because of course it is a large amount, but there we go. If they were to buy almost all of their shares, they would have spent only around 240 million. And again, this person here is saying that the lawsuit payout could be of around 1.5 billion. I would personally say, in my opinion, this wouldn't be impossible. I think it is possible that we could see this one go, in their favour, and they could win around the 1 billion mark. I would say between 1.3 billion and 1.7 billion, I would predict. And again, the reason why I think that is because what we have already established is that a lot of people are using the product, and the product is worth a lot of money. So again, this product is the IQOS system. The product has around 14 million users. That's a lot, and it also has generated around 3 billion, or at least has made about 3 billion. So that is amazing. And again, 3 billion, I definitely would assume that they would get some decent payout if they were to win. So for people who are saying that 1 billion of a payout would be a bit too much, again, the numbers don't really lie, and this one is looking decent. It definitely could go in their favour to that extent. So yeah, I don't think that they are going to, buy back the majority of their shares, because it is true that a lot of people are still holding HCMC shares. And then a question which somebody asked below this, I do believe, was, what if people aren't willing to sell? They can't buy the majority of their shares back if they were, if there were so many people still willing to hold. I think this is true to an extent, but it also goes back to the question of what are we holding HCMC for? We're holding it for money, right? We want to make money off HCMC stock. That's fine, that's fair. I think it's going to get to the point where people are going to be sat there, and then the price might go up to, for example, 1 cent, for example, and I think the first amount of people will be selling out. I think some people have 1 cent as their price target, and if you own a couple million shares of Hcmc, a 1 cent price target would probably make you a lot of money. And again, as the price climbs with the buyback, as demand becomes a bit more increased than supply does, then we are going to see the share price climb and climb and climb, and people will sell out, obviously, as they are, happy with their price and the amount of money that they have got. So again, that's not guaranteed. There's no guarantee of a share buyback. But if it was to happen, I would say roughly between 40 and 60% of shares could be bought back, I do believe. I think that would be enough to still spark quite an amount of movement in Hcmc stock. We all know it is true that if they were to do a buyback, it would work in everybody's favour. It would give the most value for investors, and again, it would also help the people who are owning Hcmc stock within the company. Again, if the share price rises, these people do get a benefit. And this is interesting because the CEO, Jeffrey Holman, basically has about 12 billion shares according to Fintel as well. So you can see that it may be in his best interest to try and improve the share price by doing a buyback. People are also talking about a reverse split. I think this could also help them, and it again would be a lot cheaper. So that is also on the table, or perhaps even a combination of both. And again, a reverse split, it may sound like the worst option, but it definitely could help them long term, because if the share price was to get to $2, $3, $4, $5, we definitely could apply to get on the Nasdaq, and that would open up a whole new world. As we already know, the OTC markets, whilst it is good for certain stocks, it is considered a bit of a sketchy area in the markets. I think if this one was in theory to get on the Nasdaq, if it was to be uplisted to there, people would take it a bit more seriously. Look at other stocks which have been through a similar scenario and how things change for them. So now I'm getting a bit carried away with myself there, and I'm talking a few years or at least a few months into the future, but it is still something which I did want to bring to your attention, because a lot is on the table for Hcmc, going forwards around this lawsuit and after the lawsuit, of course, but it's not guaranteed that Hcmc will win, even if things are looking like they are in their favour. This is only just my opinion, and it is not financial advice. But let's get back to the short term and what we could be seeing in the next week. Well, tomorrow is a Sunday, so I'm giving all of my forecasts and predictions for the next week on Hcmc in that episode, but in this one I'm going to say that I definitely am pretty happy with how Hcmc has been moving in the past few days. I think Hcmc is in a position now where we could see the share price continue to rise back up, and if anything, I do think that Monday is going to be a quite green day for Hcmc. I think when good news comes out about the stock, people anticipate it rocketing to the moon overnight. I think we're in a stage now where we really do need to wipe this out of our minds. People think it's going to rocket to 0.002 on Monday morning. I think it's apparent that that is not going to happen, and that is fine. But I still do believe that next week could be an interesting period for Hcmc. If this short does actually happen, if we see a bit of a short squeeze carry out, we could make a lot of money in the short term. So I think a lot of people who are looking for the next short squeeze stock could have their eyes on Hcmc at the moment, but we will have to see what unfolds in the next week. If nothing else, I think that the amount of interest that this is attracting to the stock is going to see a rise in share price, and if this volume does carry on into the next week, who knows, we could definitely see that short squeeze undergo and actually take place. So thank you for joining me for this one, guys. I will see you very soon. Goodbye until the next episode. See you all tomorrow.